Welcome back. I am so excited that you have joined me again in the Aligned Womb, Aligned You podcast. I'm Kate Nagai, and I am your host and womb guide on this journey. I'm here to help you to lean into the language of your menstrual cycle so that you can align yourself and awaken and activate to your womb wisdom to live the most inspired life. I am so excited to jump into this episode and to dive into today's topic. So let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to the Aligned Womb, Aligned You podcast. This episode, I am really excited to dive into because if you are somebody who is a parent, has had to deal with young children or even teenagers, and trying to live in alignment with your cycle, it can feel like a whole lot of chaos. And today, our guest that we have coming on is going to dive into this topic with me and help us really dive into our cycle and how we can align ourselves so that we can really thrive as parents or maybe even teachers of young children, and how we can really just get playful with our cycle and knowing our strengths and knowing how we can set ourselves up for success. So today I have Darci Hawxhurst, who is a Master in Science in Education and is a founding member of the Certified Math Method, Health and Fitness Coaches and Practitioners. She's a child brain developmentalist and a neurological evaluator, a member of the Conscious Female Leadership Academy, a writer, a speaker, a teacher, and a literacy expert. She is also a mother of a formerly brain-injured child who has hit rock bottom, burnout, and come back, which really was a transformational moment for her to be inspired and create the Vibrant Women's Program. This is a program that is based upon a paradigm-shifting journey that puts women on a path of thriving by removing the root causes of stress and modern metabolic disease. I cannot wait to dive into all of this and unpack stress, parenting, your journey into this work, and learn more about what you do. So welcome, Darci. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Kate, for having me. It is really an honor to be here with you.
Now, just even reading your bio, a part of me is curious and excited to learn, like, how did you get here? How has this become your focus or your place of interest of working with the cycle and working with stress and the brain and the nervous system? Please tell us more.
So I'm going to have to rewind just a little bit. And so bear with me. It's hilarious because honestly, if you were to roll back a couple of decades and take a look at where I'm coming from, where I am right now and the work that I do was born really of such tremendous contrast. So let's roll back. Let's look at young, single Darci in college who had no idea when her next period was coming, right? Who was subsisting on Camel Lights, Diet Coke, and pretzels out of a box, who was absolutely pretty much miserable in her body all the time, not confident in it. It wasn't the size or shape of the women in the pictures who had, the love and the approval and the power. So I really came from a place where I was very disconnected from my body. So when I realized, gosh, it's been a while since I've had a period. I wonder when my period's coming. And I actually woke up in the morning to the sound of angels singing in my room. And they were singing, "She's Here." I thought, she who? So I did. I went to the pharmacy that afternoon and bought a package of cigarettes and a pregnancy test. And, I tell more about that story on my blog and in the memoir I'm finishing, because this was a journey into totally uncharted territory. I found out I was pregnant for my daughter, Haley. This is how little I knew about how little I knew. I'm like, oh, sure. I'm just going to be a single mom. It's going to be awesome. And, in a villageless society with no support from others, right? Just thought this is going to be awesome. So what ended up happening, I'll be brief, is that my daughter Haley was brain injured. She had meningitis and we almost lost her. And when we did leave the hospital with a tiny 2-month-old baby, and a long list of disability labels and a big bottle of phenobarbital, I was thrust, none of which was okay with me, by the way. You and I were talking a bit in the preview about how you just, when you know something is right for you, you can feel it in your body. You feel it as expansion and excitement. And when something is not right for you, you feel it in your body as a total shutdown, like in my bones, this prognosis for my child, her life, and my life was a resounding no. So I really didn't know what the yes was. I knew what the no was. And I was just willing. I was just heartbroken enough about that I was just willing to follow the path as it lit up, kind of one step at a time. So I ended up learning all about the brain and neuroplasticity and how to heal a body and a brain. And a lot of that had to do with nutrition. A lot of it had to do with, getting more in tune with the natural world, with nature, with our cycles. We had to eat close to nature. We've got to move outside every day. We've got to get the obstacles out of the way, the things that are actually hurting us. So there was a lot of that in the rehabilitation journey that I took with my daughter. And doing that journey as a single mom, trying to wear all the hats all the time, not taking care of myself. She was at the peak of her journey. We were traveling, actually. She had been invited to perform this gymnastics routine. This child who had previously been diagnosed with mild cerebral palsy and, couldn't make her way up or down a flight of stairs independently. I was terrified to let her try to, walk 7 steps ahead of me. She was so clumsy and uncoordinated. And the point is, she had healed to this point where she was now a gymnast and a triathlete, and she was going to be performing a routine in Philadelphia on this weekend. She was at the peak of her journey. And Kate, I was a hot mess. I was covered head to toe with a bright red, painful, itchy rash. Supposed to be showing up at all these fancy events and it was painful to take a shower, put a bra on, or get dressed. And I was showing up, right? Because I was doing my thing. I was being the mom. And the point is, Haley she nailed her thing. She got the standing ovation and the bouquet, and she returned home. She never looked at herself the same way again. Like something in her clicked, and she was gonna succeed. She didn't see herself as disabled anymore. And I came home and collapsed into bed, right? Because all of the energy I had been putting into other people's baskets, I didn't know about self-care. So I learned the hard way. And I had, like you, I had experts tell me this, you'll never be able to heal this. You have ruined your thyroid. These food allergies are, nobody expects those things to change. I was supposed to end up on medication for the rest of my life. And again, that feeling in my very broken body was a resounding no. So I already had a lot of these tools. I just hadn't really focused on applying them to myself. And once I began to truly take care of myself, that path back from burnout, I just wanted to be well. I just wanted to be able to put a shirt on, right? I just wanted to be able to go to in public again and look decent. Like I wanted to have the energy to get up and fix a meal or take a walk with my daughter again. Imagine what kind of a parent I was at that point. I thought I was doing some heroic thing, and I was doing what I had to do. But the point is, if I had listened to my body, any of those steps before the total crash, I could have made a change then. It would have been much less dramatic. But the point is, I had to begin to apply these tools to myself. And the path back from burnout doesn't just come to healing and healthy. If you keep it up, it keeps going. To this place where I live now, I'm in uncharted territory. I say I live in thriving. I really had no idea that a physical body could feel better year after year. I mean, let's be honest. Let's look around at our peers and going downhill and feeling worse, and the aches and the pains and this and that. For women especially, our menstrual cycles become so symptomatic. I think it is the most sacred place for our bodies to talk to us, but it becomes so symptomatic, and it just doesn't have to be that way. I've made that journey. So I love sharing this story and just letting other women know what is possible. Yeah. So there it is.
I love it. And it's interesting because, I think this is like a common theme that I hear when I work with clients is that we really don't go down the path of healing until we hit this place of rock bottom. And this isn't because we've been taught this. I think part as women, we are just on autopilot. Society has set us up to be just on autopilot. We just keep going and pushing in this linear way and hope that somebody at some point is going to pick us up and fix us. So it's this point of hitting rock bottom or feeling completely broken that all of a sudden we stand up and we say, hell no, I'm reclaiming my power and I'm finding my path. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm finding it. And, for myself, this was through my fertility journey of healing from ectopic pregnancies when I was told there was no hope, which, like yourself, you had this major event, which is like at this initiation into trusting your body, into learning how there's so much wisdom and power in the human body. And then from there, I had these tools and resources for every time I hit another big milestone in my life. So I had 3 complicated pregnancies. Every one of my pregnancies, I was on bed rest. And every one of them, they were supposed to come early or maybe not even make it to a viable week for me to keep the pregnancy, to once again me saying, hell no, I will make this happen. I have resources. I have inner tools I can use. And all of those pregnancies made it to, 2 of them made them to full term. 1 was born at 31 weeks. My middle child that was born at 31 weeks. My 3rd child should have been born premature since my middle one was. But he made it to 40. He was like, I'm not leaving this womb space. But my middle child that came early at 31 weeks, being in the NICU, they were all like, prepare yourself to be here until 40, 42 weeks. You're going to be in this hospital for at least 10 weeks. We were released at 33 weeks. And why were we released at 33 weeks? It's because every time something was thrown at me of like, you need to do this, and it was a fear response from the medical community, I sat with it and was like, does this feel right? Does this not feel right? And when it didn't feel right, and I was scared to go against what the medical advice was, I'd call my midwife. Thank God I had her. And she would send me articles pro and con and say, read both of these and see where your body lands. And then I would go with my gut instinct and do exactly what I want. And my child was released in 2 weeks. When we were released, the doctor said, okay, first of all, your baby's the only one that doesn't realize that she's too young to leave this hospital.
Right. Exactly.
And second of all, when Alberta Health calls you to do a follow-up, because you're now home with this baby, they're going to freak out that you have a 33-week-old baby at home because this is unheard of. But I trusted my instincts, and you would never know. My daughter's now 7 years old, almost 8. And you would never know that she was a preemie baby. She's even bigger than her sister. Like now she takes her older sister's hand-me-down clothes. Like it's swapped now where she is the bigger child out of the 2 girls. And so you would never guess it. And so I think sometimes we get into caught in these loops of fear and we don't have the resources. And this has been one of the biggest things, is coming home to my body, coming home to my cycle, and trusting my intuition has helped guide me into this place of trust again.
It's amazing because your story, you're basically saying, look what happens when we get out of the way, when we stop subscribing to beliefs that separate us from our absolutely innate natural truth. And that truth is this: you were made to thrive. And the guidance for that thriving does not come from authority voices outside of us. It always comes from within. Always. Always. I love your story.
As soon as you said we are made to thrive, a part of my body contracted. And it's so funny because a part of me is like, how scary is that for us to think that we are meant to thrive? We are not meant to be broken. We are not meant to be fixed. We are meant to thrive.
Yes, but I think the fear for women, I'll just speak for myself actually. Here's the thing though, and I ask this all the time in my work with my clients and in my courses. This is a bit of a triggering question when we say, how good are you willing to feel?
Mm-hmm.
And how good are you willing to let life get for you? Because at some level, we also have this kind of wiring in our brains, and this was meant to serve us for a long time. It's just, it doesn't really serve us anymore. We are afraid that if we thrive, again, that's uncharted territory. We don't really know what that looks like. We don't really see anybody else over there living over there doing that. And I'll speak for myself. I didn't necessarily want to completely thrive because I didn't want to be alone in that thriving. You know, we're wired to need community, and there's a bit of an outcast experience. It definitely my journey required me to step way into the margins. The way that I eat, the kind of lifestyle I'm going to live, the rehabilitation journey that I did with my daughter was not in the mainstream. There are not very many people in the margins, and it doesn't always feel safe there because it feels unfamiliar and uncomfortable in a new way. We don't always know what to expect. But here's the truth of the matter. We're all always being guided from within, and we're all on our own unique path. It's just that we see so many people doing what looks like the same way or the mainstream way or the accepted way. And so we kind of, we get hooked by that fear. And you're absolutely right. Anything that any of us really wants lies in, not necessarily always in the margins, but it always is. It's the inner voice that will lead us there. Always, every time. And
we just have to turn up the volume on that inner voice.
Absolutely. How do we do that though, right? How do we do it? There's a cacophony coming from outside of us.
Yep. And you know what I would say to that would be, as women, I think we are trained to trust our gut when it comes to personal safety, right? I can walk out of the mall and my senses all heighten up and I get gut reactions if people are too close in my bubble, or if I have someone walking behind me. I know without knowing. And so when it comes to personal safety, we have been trained to be able to turn on that internal knowing. So practice that as a skill set and then go out into the world and practice it with other fears. Practice it with the fear of health. Practice it with the fear of parenting. Practice it with the fear of your independence or your self-autonomy, right? Like use it, go back to this idea of I've done this before. I've trained myself to do this before. I can do it in this situation. And I think that might be a key to help us to start trusting our intuition.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because there are people who profit from making sure that we don't trust our intuition. And I'm usually not much, I'm not here to criticize any of the, mainstream paradigms or push against anything, that there's no value in that. But I think it helps to understand that, because so many of us, here's the other thing that comes with being a woman, having two X chromosomes and, identifying as a female gender on this planet at this time, well, even for the last 500 years, is that part of our social conditioning includes training us out of trusting our instincts. It's not talked about much. And when it is talked about, it's woo, it's something that's like woo woo. No, it's very real. I teach in my Vibrant Woman course. Actually, next week I'll be teaching the science of intuition. Like it's born in your gut. There are neurotransmitters there, there's a reason you have those feelings in your body and where they're coming from. And we just have to trust them. So kudos to you and hooray for all of us that we are making these communities and these spaces where women can tell our stories and listen to each other and, come in and ask for support when we waffle a little bit, as we always will. Like you said, you had the support of your midwife, somebody there to not to externalize that locus of control. You're not looking for her to tell you what to do. You're looking for her to guide you back to where it all comes from, which is inside yourself. And this is the gift that we give to each other, and something really important, I think, for women to include in their friendships with each other, which is this sort of this mirroring. We need to help each other put this in check. When we're in doubt of our own intuition, what do we need to say to each other? What kind of reminders can we give? What kind of still spaces can we support so that we can all move forward with integrity? Because honestly, this is so much more powerful than just your life and your children and my life and my daughter and my health. This is culturally transformative. It's what we're up to.
And I truly believe that the more that we help women tap into understanding how their cycle plays into their intuition and how their cycle plays into their wellness and how their cycle plays into their vibrancy, this is where we start to heal not only women, but we heal community, where we start to teach our youth the power of their period. And we start to teach our partners the gifts that we bring that break the mold of the linear approach that we've been living for centuries, right? Since the patriarchal system came into play, which is really just a power system for someone to be able to control an outcome, which the best way to control an outcome is through a linear approach of we do said steps equals said result, right? And predictability. And the thing is that women, we become predictable, but when we're given the space to be cyclical, when we are allowed to be able to express and move and use different strengths, knowing that we have a very unique cocktail of hormones. We don't have just testosterone. We have a variety of stuff pulsating through us. And it's not all coming at the same time. It's taking its turns and it's marinating our brain and our endocrine system and our body. So that way we can really begin to tap into these different sources of wisdom in our body.
Brilliant. Of course. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And, I love what you said there about teaching our daughters. I want to just share a quick story if I can. In my work, in my Vibrant Woman course last week, we talked about hormone balance. And I invited all the women to write a letter to their younger self, letting her know what, with some love and forgiveness and acceptance, what she didn't know then. And what comes up over and over and over again in that exercise is the grief that happens when we realize something so beautiful and natural about ourselves was created so much shame in us. Mm-hmm. And here's just one quick example. This woman shared that when her period first started, the only instructions she got from her mother were to keep a paper bag lined with a bunch of newspaper in the bottom of her closet. And she was to put everything in there because she had 5 brothers and they did not want evidence of her very beautiful, natural bleeding phase of her cycle to show up anywhere else in the house. Mm-hmm. And so she literally, this most beautiful, powerful, sacred part of her, the evidence that she was now a fertile being and had gone through this change and was stepping into an absolutely incredibly powerful phase of her life, was literally put into the closet. Don't tell me that doesn't have everything to do with the other trouble that she has had with her body over all these years. Her trouble being healthy and exercising in a way that actually feels good to her and eating in a way that is healthy. She's overcoming all these layers of shame in her body that were instilled from not being able to celebrate, this beautiful change. And so I'm with you, like for my daughter, and my heart goes out to that woman and she's not alone. And if you have a story that resonates with that, you're not alone. It wasn't that bad for sure for me, but definitely, you don't want kids in your high school to know that you're on your period this week. We do everything we can, to hide that part of ourselves. And I raised my daughter without any of that. And she's so different. She's got such an openness and a boldness about her and such a healthy relationship with food. And she's just got these layers that I'm still working on healing. She has energy to do other things with her life because she doesn't even have to put her attention there. So I'm with you. I just think we need to heal ourselves, and then we need to communicate about this with our young women so that, yes, they can get about their business and not have to worry so much about, the shame that comes with this. Breaks my heart of it,
Yes. And, I have a very, not a completely similar story, but very similar story to her. I was never told to hide it, but there was something innately within me that knew that I had to bury my pads in a garbage can, that no one could know. Like somehow that if I buried them, no one would ever discover that I was bleeding. It was not something that was said to me, but yet it was an innate instinct in my body that just knew. And I think, not to go down this rabbit hole, but this is where sometimes ancestral healing has to happen, right? Like I was not told that by my mother, but somewhere my body in my cells knew that was the reality. That was the truth. And so I carried that probably from shame that my mother had or her grandmother or her mother had, right? Like somewhere in my matriarchal lineage, there was a messaging that they were dirty or shamed. And so those words didn't even have to come into my vocabulary for me to know it in my cells.
Yeah, it's just the air, it's the air we breathe. It's the water we swim in. A fish says, what's water? It's just in the culture. Because here's the other thing, you didn't necessarily get that message, but you certainly didn't get the message, welcome to this sacred, powerful part of your life, right? You weren't given a party, you weren't allowed to like mark that blood on your forehead and dance around. And, you weren't invited to look at it, to look at the texture of it, to smell it, to make sure that you're healthy. Every other species on the planet has this intimacy with their bodies. Not humans.
No.
Yeah.
And I would argue not Western cultures.
Mm-hmm. I hear that. I gotcha.
Yeah, because I think there's a huge disconnect. And I'm trying to remember where I read it now. But I read it somewhere in one of my texts that PMS is only a Western culture byproduct. This isn't something that a lot of Eastern cultures experience as PMS. This is something that we have manufactured with how we live our lifestyle, which is through nutrition, through stress, through women not honoring their cycles, through women not resting, right? This is through a lot of the culture that we have created is around what has now manifested into PMS.
Absolutely. Indigenous cultures too. The Black and brown Indigenous cultures that we are working so hard to elevate and amplify their voices now because we realize we need them. They've got that wisdom. We've lost it. We need their voices. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Are you wanting to understand your cycle better, to understand your rhythm, the language of your womb, and to really begin to connect deeper with your body? Then I invite you to go and grab my free charting journal. This is a charting journal to chart for both your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual self to deeply connect to your womb wisdom and to understand how to live more in alignment with your energy so that you can have more self-love, more compassion, and you can live your life to the fullest with so much pleasure, with so much fun, and with excitement. It is time for us to be empowered by our womb wisdom and by the language of our cycle. So hop on over to the link below in the show notes and grab your free copy of the Charting Journal today.
So we kind of dived a little bit into it. I'd love to hear what because part of your story is that you had to hit rock bottom, and part of that rock bottom was the stress, the overwhelm, the overconsumption of our fears. What is your take on stress and the menstrual cycle? How has this played into you rediscovering your body and healing your body and learning its wisdom?
This is a beautiful question. So for one thing, what I have learned about stress through my journey back from burnout and through my work with all of the functional medicine and holistic and integrative doctors and specialists that, I was so privileged to work with, to have mentor me. First of all, stress is a product, and not just of the modern world, but we really have an chronic stress problem, a chronic stress problem in our modern world. It has everything to do with our food, our lifestyles, our lack of sleep, all these things. But for me, if I were to zoom in and notice, one of the biggest sources of stress for me was my unwillingness, and this came from the way I was raised and the way I was socialized, my unwillingness to allow my body to be as it naturally was, and my body is cyclical. So what do we do when we hit menstruation? We jam in a tampon, we take an Advil, grab an extra cup of coffee, and we go, go, go. Now, where is that message coming from? Is that really coming from within? It's not. Now, I get it, because that's, in some ways, this is the women's liberation work that my mother's generation did, that said, oh no, don't you lock me at home by myself. Don't you put me in the closet just because I'm bleeding this week. I'm a fully functioning, independent person, and I deserve access, and I deserve participation, But here's the thing, just because we don't want to have ourselves marginalized and excluded based on these different parts of our cycle, doesn't mean we need to be running as if we have, XY chromosome people have a diurnal rhythm. They're pretty much the same. Like you said, testosterone has a daily cycle. The complicated, beautiful symphony of women's hormones, the two big players, estrogen and progesterone, they're not the only players, and cortisol gets in there. And, estrogen itself is not even one thing. It's like all these different compounds. But the point is, this beautiful symphony has a 28-ish day cycle. And so what I came to realize is that when I feel tired and my belly is heavy and my flow is heavy, and I don't really care what anyone else is saying, I really just want to pay attention to my own thoughts and feelings, that does not make me a bitch. That makes me a very natural woman. And the only humane, sane response to that, out of love for myself, is to let people know I need a couple of days to myself and to go take care of my body and listen to it. Let it bleed, let it rest. Now, see, we get stuck here though, Kate. Like we think, oh, this is how it's always going to be. We need to learn to trust the cycle. My period is about to start. I'll be real honest with you. And I don't usually do a lot of talking these 2 days. And the talking that I do usually sounds a whole lot different. It has a different energy to it, a different tone, different content than if I were doing this interview 2 weeks ago when I was in my summer, my ovulation, and I was anxious to be visible and seen and have my hair done. Like there's a different energy. And when we learn to lean in and let that energy guide us, everything gets done. Everything happens in perfect timing. And our bodies are allowed to feel peace and at home and accepted in all of those phases. It's the pushing against those natural tendencies that elevate cortisol, that knock things off balance, that keep us from getting proper rest, that cause that stress. Not to mention the terrible thoughts and beliefs we hold about ourselves. Like, why can't I do this? If I were to sit here today and say, why can't I be as brilliant and articulate as I want to be? Because your period's about to start. You got different hormones acting on your brain. You're at a different place in your cycle right now. Just recognizing that allowed me to love and accept myself in a way I had never known before. Mm-hmm. When we live from there, I find an incredible empowerment. And that takes away the stress. And we learn to live in harmony with it. So we're not causing more stress to ourselves by expecting just simply what's unreasonable, to be honest. It's unreasonable. And there's no reason we should have to keep up with the world the way it goes, the way they say it is.
Well, just as it denies a part of our hormone energy when we try to power through the second half of our cycle and not honor the rhythm, what we're also, without knowing, doing is also denying our feelings and denying who we truly are, right? Like we are living in a society where it's like you can only show up at being happy. Like, what's that? You're upset? Do whatever you need to do to just find happiness again. Find joy. Like we don't allow space for anger or sadness to be something that is comfortable for others, right? And the thing is that anger is needed. Everybody has anger. So let's quit pretending like anger doesn't exist and let's have it, express it so that we can feel better and move on, right? And so and we can do this in a safe container without harming anyone or harming ourselves. But this is the thing, is that when we start denying or pushing these feelings or felt senses down into a box and locking it and saying we can't go there, we're denying a part of an expression of ourselves, which then, if we keep doing this, is going to ultimately change our hormone levels, because other hormones, the body's going to say, hey, something's off, and it's going to respond. Like our body's so smart. And the reason why we have adrenal fatigue and like over amounts of cortisol in our body is because we're not giving our body the ability to come down from the stress. We're training it that, listen, tomorrow we're going to be right back here. So let's not drop down to 10% in the cortisol level. Let's keep it at 60% because tomorrow I'm going to have to get to 80. And it's so much work for me to produce that much again to get to 80. So I'm just going to hover at 60. I'll give you a little bit of a break, a little bit of a breather, but I'm not coming fully down for you to feel that pleasure. And our body's so smart that it keeps doing this. And by doing this, we create adrenal fatigue. We create chronic stress. We create endometriosis. We create these menstrual conditions. And I'm not saying that people are like asking for themselves to be ill, but we are trained in society that we just need to push through the emotions. We need to push through the exhaustion. We need to not allow ourselves to express all sides of ourselves and only be one form that is socially acceptable. And we can't talk about the other sides of ourselves. We can't talk about our pleasure state. We can't talk about our relationship problems. We can't be honest about how much it sucks sometimes to be a parent because we went through fertility stuff, right? That was one of my big guilt things that I had to work through, is that I had to work so hard to have these kids, but holy hell, is this hard? This is too much at times. And then there's the guilt that comes in. It's like, but you wanted this. Like, why? You can't go back. Like, you can't say those things. But the reality is that it is hard. And you know why it's hard? It's hard because I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not in a part of my cycle when I need to rest.
I have goosebumps all over my body. I mean, just all of those truths. Everybody needs to stop and rewind and hear that again. Yeah, you asked for this. And yes, it's hard. And you just need space to honor. So that's the point of it. Like, is being a mother incredible and sacred? And yes, it is. Mm-hmm. And is it miserable and hard sometimes? Yes, it is. It's both and. And I think that's what living in attunement with a cycle helps us to just acknowledge it. It's all around us. It's in nature. Everybody loves the spring and the summer. It's so beautiful. Okay, well, you don't get that beautiful blossoming without the fallow season.
Yeah.
And we want to fast forward through fallow season. We don't want to sink down into it. We're terrified of the depths. We're terrified of some of these things. And it's like you said, but we're missing the pleasure because we're not allowing ourselves to feel anything deeply enough to truly let it move through us. Mm-hmm. Even as beautiful as my new becoming is right now, and I can feel this at this part of my cycle. My period is about to start, so I'm in purge mode, right? I'm cleaning out everything. I'm not only going to shed my uterine lining, I'm going to shed the contents of a bunch of closets around here too, right? That's totally in alignment for me right now. Here's the thing. It's because I'm about to move into a new phase of my life, and I can already see a bit of it. I can taste it. A lot of it is intentional. It's going to be a beautiful blossoming, but I won't get there without going through this purge first. And what that means is I have to let go of a lot of who I have been. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of who I am that's not going to be appropriate for this new life I'm creating for myself. And is it okay to let that go? Yes. But should I mourn a little bit? Sure. Can I allow myself to feel a little sadness about what I'm leaving behind before I turn that beautiful round corner and dive in there? So we need to allow ourselves to have this, the nature, the both and the and. Mm-hmm. And besides that box that you're talking about, that box that we stuff everything into, it is not infinite. Mm-hmm. And all of that anger, all of the resentment, if we don't express it in the moments that we feel it, I expressed a little anger toward my daughter this morning. I said, wait a minute. We're not going to just carry on with this conversation and pretend like what you just said to me is okay. It's not okay with me. Now, that was a real gift and a beautiful thing. And that conversation had a little lull in it. And then we both got back on track. But if I were to have 20 years ago, I would have let that roll. And 17,000 other disrespects. And you know how they come out of the box then when they're so packed in with so much pressure, they come out as rage. And then that rage leads us to feel more shame and disappointment in ourselves. So the truth is we do a gift, we give ourselves a gift and we give all of our beloveds a gift when we just allow ourselves to have all these different parts, right?
Mm-hmm. And this leads into a perfect question about parenting. Parenting and cycle. Because I think what we've been talking about of being true and authentic and looking at our stress responses and living authentically in that second half of our cycle and that fallow season, we can bring that into our parenting. And I don't know about you, Darci, but I know for myself, I always joke that when it comes to parenting, I am the fun parent during my inner spring and my inner summer. Like we have dance parties in the morning. If my kids come home and have a bad day, we turn on music and we move our bodies and everyone feels good. Like I'm the fun mom then. I make up songs. It's great. Soon as I cross over day 19, I can feel the edge turn right away. And there's two things that I've noticed in particular with parenting with because I have young kids. All my kids are under the age of 9 right now. My oldest is 8, almost 9. And two things that I have noticed about my cycle, which have been beautiful little nuggets of wisdom for me so that I can really live authentically and align myself so I can be the parent that I want to be. Because the desire of being the parent that I want to be is still there. The two little things that I've noticed is one, in my inner fall. So in what we would call our PMS phase or our luteal phase, however you want to identify with it, is my sensory for sound amplifies. So my kids can think that they are talking to each other and I hear it as fighting. We sit down for dinner and I can hear everyone chewing their food.
Can I just talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
I want you to continue, but I want to just point this out for people because I can see heads nodding all around the globe right now. And I want to name two things. You're not crazy. It's not all in your head. This is your midbrain. This is midbrain sensitivity. And it has a lot to do with, yes, the hormone balance on our brain and which parts are activated. It also has a little bit to do with this excess cortisol. And it makes us slightly more hypersensitive. Now, because what's the natural way to take care of that is to kind of push back and to provide some space. Now, that's nature guiding us. That's nature saying you need some space, beloved. Get yourself some space and some quiet time, right? So You're not crazy. It's in your head. It's a real bona fide brain thing. And I just want you and everybody else to be aware of that.
It's so true. And so what I've had to, now that I have this awareness, now that I've tuned into and going, this is a repetitive thing that's happening every cycle at this time, is now when I feel that rush or that little bit of like itchiness of like, I'm about to lose my crap because I just want to eat my meal in quiet, is I eat my suppers in my office and I leave my husband with the kids. And I say, talk about your day, get excited, laugh, joke, do inappropriate things at the dinner table. I don't care, but I need to remove myself because it's not okay for me to take away your joy because I'm in my inner fall. I need quiet. I want to taste my food. I want to chew slowly. I don't want to get up every 5 seconds to get you seconds or another glass of water or whatever else it is that you're asking for. So I just remove myself and it's created peace in the home. And it's been a beautiful thing.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for that beautiful example of just consciousness around this and the example that taking care of you is taking care of them.
Yep.
Because I'll give you my counter example. As a young single mom without all of these tools and awareness, I would have just been critical and short-tempered. And my daughter internalized a lot of that. And she's got some wounding to heal. She's a bit of a people pleaser because she's afraid of other people, because she doesn't want them to treat her the way I did sometimes. We talk about it now. I say, that wasn't you. That was me not knowing how to get what I needed and express my needs. And it's so much better for our beloveds when we take care of ourselves first. That's why people say, oh, how do you manage self-care with being a parent? And I say, being a good parent is self-care. That's what it is. That's where it starts.
Yeah, it is so true. And I think the beautiful thing that I've learned is that this is now them being able to see that they can remove themselves from situations when they also feel like they need alone time. It is okay for us to say, I need to walk away, right? I need space. This is not about you. This is about me. And I'm taking what I need for my care. The other big thing I've noticed, and for anyone who has really young kids or teaches in elementary school, I know that you can appreciate this, is us trying to be on autopilot to be the best mom out there. Instagram and Facebook or wherever you do your social media is always showing these great moms or the best way to make 105 different crafts. And what I have learned is I don't like doing crafts, but to honor being that mom in these few years that I have left of young children is that I can only do it in my spring. I have no energy to do that stuff in my fall. So like right now, I'm in my inner fall, and the time of this recording, we're recording it close to St. Patrick's Day. And my kids were so excited this weekend about making traps for the leprechaun. And I was like, I can't deal with the sparkles or sprinkles or whatever they are. I can't deal with the cut paper. I can't deal with the hot glue gun. Like it's just too intensified for me. So I went for a massage, and my husband built the traps with them because I knew what I needed is I needed to go to a place where I could be quiet, where I could have someone care for me, and where I could be away from the chaos, the tears, when things go wrong, because they're going to go wrong when you have a 3-year-old, a 7-year-old, and an 8-year-old. Like it's just reality.
And glitter.
Yeah. And I came home and everyone was happy. The mess was cleaned up. It was beautiful. Like I cannot deal with glue messes and sprinkles or sparkles or any of that stuff everywhere. It just feels too much. It feels like now I got to clean up after everybody. And it just creates so much angst in me. So I realized that I'm a great mom. Like last night in my inner fall, instead, we read 3 chapters of Charlotte's Web. And that is where I was at, because we're sitting quietly. I'm reading, I'm cuddling, I'm doing the thing, but I am not doing crafts with you. And so knowing that you're not expected to be the same mom every day, it's really fine tuning what it is that you enjoy in each season and then bringing that to your kids in each of those seasons. And I totally check out during menstruation. I don't know about you, but I say, I'm sorry. I am not cooking. I'm not folding clothes. Like if people run out of laundry, dad does a load and then they have to dig through the dryer to find their socks. Like it's just, I'm sorry. I'm taking a few days and I become better when I come out in my spring, in my summer. I am more energized. I am more, the mom that you think you might be, or the mom that you maybe dreamed of in your head, but realizing I only have 2 weeks where I can really sustain that. And then it's not sustainable anymore.
Well, it was never sustainable and it was never realistic anyway. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing, I just love this. Thank you for sharing these beautiful examples of how you're just being a real mom. Mm-hmm. You're being the real natural mom. What a beautiful gift to your children. And especially your daughter. Well, number one, your daughters, right? Because they have this unspoken permission now to honor their own needs and their seasons and cycles. And what a gift to the men in our lives too, to realize, to just have to kind of put that in check and balance that, what I saw portrayed out in the mainstream and in the commercials and in the movies and all of those things, those weren't real women. Mm-hmm. So a real woman isn't like that all the time. And that's why you asked me a few minutes ago, whatever we want to call it. I personally only use the acronym PMS, premenstrual syndrome. Syndrome? I mean, what the heck? I only use that in my marketing because I know other people know what it means and other people can relate to it. But that's a bunch of garbage. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as premenstrual syndrome. There's nothing pathological about your need for stillness and quiet. Just like there's nothing pathological about winter. And I think we need to stop seeing those other, less popular parts of ourselves be pathologized. But let's be honest, sometimes we do this to ourselves. I did. I for sure did. I thought, what's wrong with me that I can't, be this great mom all the time? And it's just that it was a very narrow definition of what a great mom is. It was the mom that was on with all the energy that, like you said, will do the crafts and loves glitter and is willing to, get up and find everybody's socks in the laundry. That none of that is sustainable long-term. None of that is healthy for anybody involved. And we've just been sold a version of womanhood and motherhood that keeps us very limited, we're supposed to keep everybody else happy and put all of their needs before our own. And I had to find out the hard way. That leads to burnout. And then I couldn't get out of bed and do that for anybody anyway. So we may as well just admit that we're allowed our seasons and our cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's a beautiful thing, is it not? How much beauty is there in a winter landscape?
Mm-hmm.
And that beauty is waiting for you in your still spots. We talked about intuition a few minutes ago. There are ideas and impulses and insights that I have during that still time that can't get in any other time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was denying myself all of that wisdom that comes when we are allowed to spend some time quiet alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, and you just said something, and I would like to make like bring it back to this whole equation. When we try to be a certain person all the time, it's not sustainable, which equals burnout. And when we get burnout, it means that there's a cortisol overload. And when there's a cortisol overload, there's a hormone imbalance. And when there's a hormone imbalance, this is where we see, quote unquote, PMS, endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS, painful periods, whatever label you want to give it, because we haven't given our body the time to recalibrate, to come into balance. And so now it's screaming at us. It's like, you're not listening. So how can I get you to stop? And, this is a beautiful conversation that I had with Colleen, who was a few episodes ago, who talked about pain is just a way that our body is trying to get our attention, right? And so if we keep trying to be only one person and not 4 different people that we truly are in our cyclical nature, we are going to hit burnout, overwhelm, adrenal fatigue, cortisol overload, chronic stress, chronic pain. All these things are a byproduct because we're not living in alignment.
So true.
Okay.
True. Yes.
So I know I got the insider of a new little offering that you're offering for Mother's Day. Can you share with us about this offer?
Yes, indeed. So I'm hosting my annual free Mother's Day event. It's a live online event where we're going to have a gathering of mothers and create. So there's this space that I create there that invites women to look at the entirety of their motherhood, just like we've been talking about. Is motherhood sacred? Yes. Are there days you don't want your kids touching you? Yes. Did they come from your body and if you're a biological mother, of course, did they come through your body and you love giving your bodily resources to them? Yes. And do you need your body to your own sovereign self sometimes? Yes. So just leaning in and celebrating this paradox and allowing ourselves a space to be whole and to share the parts that our culture doesn't welcome us to express those other parts, right? The shadow, and I would not even call them the shadow, but the cultural sees them as our shadow parts, the parts that we have to kind of tuck and hide away. Well, in my Mother's Day space, you don't have to hide anything. You're going to bring your whole self and meet other moms who want to talk and share about this. We end the day with some self-care tips straight from my tool bag and all the experts that I've worked with to make sure that mamas are, really taking their self-care. It might be bubble baths, it might be a pedicure and chocolate cupcakes, but that's what we're being sold. And none of that really gets to the root cause of stress. We need our sleep. We need to eat real food. And we're going to talk more about that. So I would love to have anybody come and join us. Free Mother's Day event, Mother's Day weekend. And I think you're going to put the link below so they can find out some more. Yeah.
The link will be in the show notes for anybody who wants to join that. And I highly recommend, as women, as a lot of us maybe are educators, like we need to learn to have systems in place so that we can care for ourselves while caring for other people in our lives. And even if you don't have a child, but you're an aunt or whatever role you might have, we all have young children in our lives. Like we need to understand that we don't have to be this one type of person. So
true.
And Darci, I love ending these episodes with a weekly tip on how to live a womb-led life. What would be one tip that you would like to leave these ladies with on how they can connect deeper with their bodies and just live in alignment?
So for me, I'll just tell you the tip that comes to the top of my mind is to remember that you're not like nature, you are nature. And so for me, one of the easiest ways to sort of get on board and allow my cycle to really flow is to turn my attention out and look at nature and notice what it's mirroring back to me. So for me, this is paying attention to the moon cycles. And did you know moonlight is an essential nutrient? Just like sunlight during the day converts to vitamin D3 on the surface of your skin, moonlight is an essential nutrient. So my tip is, we had the full moon last week. You're going to have to wait a little bit, but watch the moon cycles. And the next time you see the moon getting full, get outside under that moonlight or pull a chair over to the window and sit in a puddle of full moonlight and expose yourself to that. And just begin to pay attention to how are you feeling? What is your body wanting during those times? What thoughts, feelings, ideas do you get during that time that might be different than other times in your cycle? And I actually keep a moon journal too. I think it's a great idea to just write it down. And you don't have to do it for all the phases. You can start with something simple. Where's the full moon and what am I noticing tonight?
I love it.
Yeah.
When I started aligning myself to my cycle, I started recognizing the alignment of the moon. And now I also recognize how I'm feeling in each different season, knowing that my spring or my inner follicular or my inner luteal changes if we are in an environmental winter or an environmental summer. It's so amazing how not only the moon, but the environmental cycles really play on our cycles. So I love it. Everyone go moon bathe. That's what it is called. So if you want more information, you can also Google it because it is a thing, moon bathing. All right. Thank you so much, Darci. And for anybody who wants to learn more about Darci, you can go check out her website. I'll have the link in the show notes below. She also has her Vibrant Women community. Those for her Facebook group and her Instagram will also be down in the show notes. Go follow her, go check her work out, and sign up for her Mother's Day program. It is going to be fabulous. I think we need, as mothers, more of this awareness of how we can be different moms. We can be 4 different versions, and that's okay. So thank you, Darci. This was lovely, and I hope everyone enjoyed this episode.
For way too long, as women, we have been guided to hate our menstrual cycle and to curse our hormones. We have lost the art of seeing the inner power of being cyclical. So, if this podcast is inspiring you and waking up a new curiosity of how your cycle can be your superpower, I invite you to check out the She Sisterhood. This is a monthly membership that will align you to your unique rhythm through aligned womb yoga practices, cycle coaching on how to weave your cycle wisdom into everyday life, and to be part of a community of women that are awakening to their inner power. Remember, womb wisdom equals connection to self, which ultimately equals inspired living. And if you love this episode, don't forget to rate and review. I love seeing how this information is transforming your life.